Yeah.
But it was too cold.
Still a good time.
Yes. Well, I think we are live now. I will welcome everyone to the Facebook live stream who can definitely join in and participate with your questions by putting them in the chat. But we are here today with two guest speakers for this chat. My name is Melissa Deschamps. I'm the Regional Educational Advising Coordinator for Education USA in the Middle East and North Africa. And I'm joined by Paula and Aziz. I'll allow you to introduce yourselves as well.
Hi, I'm Paula Masad, and I'm one of the Education USA advisors at the U.S. Embassy in Qatar.
Hi, I'm Nasila Gaili. I'm also one member of this amazing team, Education USA Qatar. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael and Abdulaziz. Thanks for everyone who is watching us on Facebook.
Yes, and so we're here today to have a fun chat with Abdulaziz and Michael to hear a little bit about their experience at Syracuse University. Michael is still there now, a bit of freezing cold weather, but really just to explore what that process was like for you to select Syracuse as a study destination, how you two became friends, and in particular, some of the experiences you had in leadership roles, in particular with the student ambassador. But before we get into the conversation part, if you can each introduce yourselves, we'll start with Abdulaziz.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for hosting us on this live interview. And, we're excited to be here. I'm Abdulaziz Al-Salayti. I graduated from Syracuse University fall 2019. And I started my undergrad studies in Syracuse in fall 2015. So as of this year, it's been 5 years having started in Syracuse and studied in Syracuse policy studies, economics, and political philosophy.
My name is Michael Lockfeld. I am a senior at Syracuse University. I study international relations and French and Francophone studies, and I will be graduating next semester.
Great. So let's talk a little bit first about how you chose Syracuse. What were the factors that you considered when making that decision?
Sure. I think it had always been my goal to study in the United States and primarily study abroad. I think getting a different environment and being exposed to different cultures as well as educational environment was something that I was looking forward to. And part of my university shall we say, exploration process is, I was looking for universities that had the programs that I was interested in, that had the type of activities, the student experience that I was interested in. And that looked like a lot like being able to really choose the different majors and being able to choose whatever classes I wanted to take and pursue my passion in economics and policy studies. And Syracuse really stood out as one of the top universities for me. And I was actually contacted by our regional admission officer, and they helped with the process. They helped really explain what Syracuse University is all about, what type of classes, the environment, the student experience, and so on. So I think primarily, obviously looking at the different geographical locations is also key. I know that a lot of students tend to choose warmer areas and choose universities that are closer to big cities. But for me, I think what I was looking for is having the traditional college experience and being able to really immerse myself in that environment. And Syracuse definitely gave me all of that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the traditional college experience, which is definitely one of the reasons why I chose Syracuse. Originally, when I was looking at schools, because I wanted to study international relations, I was looking at a lot of DC schools and schools all over the East Coast, really. But Syracuse really jumped out to me because of the Maxwell School, and I really enjoyed my academic experience there, especially with the faculty there. They're extremely specialized in the field that they study, the field that they practiced in, and there's a lot of opportunities there through the Syracuse Alumni Network. And yeah, it was the traditional college campus through the Maxwell School, and just the support I have at Syracuse. At Syracuse, I didn't feel like I'm just like a number. I felt that I really was being taken care of and advised very properly. And I really enjoyed the advice I was given from either mentors or faculty and professors at the university.
And how did you both meet? What was the, I know there was a specific activity. I think that that's also a great thing to hear a little bit about.
Right. Michael and I met as part of Greek Life on campus. Both of us are members of a Greek organization on campus. And so I was already in that organization, and Michael was a prospective new member at that time. So we met, I think, a couple years back, or 3 years maybe. And so we obviously also did a lot of, both of us are in the Maxwell School, so that kind of naturally overlapped with our interests and our hobbies and our goals in the future. And so that definitely helped bring us closer and help us really share the activities that we do.
Yeah, because I think it's definitely one of the things that students who are going somewhere without their friends and they don't have that comfort bubble, to know that you have common interests with others at the university, and so you will make friends, you will be able to meet others with similar interests, but also those that, you know, introduce you as well to new things. So I think that's great. And which Greek organization is it, if I might ask?
Of course. It's Delta Upsilon fraternity.
Okay, great. Yes, I know some students oftentimes ask questions about that as well. You know, if they pledge, if it's, you know, there's different types of Greek organizations as well. That isn't just the movies, the depiction on the movie pledging. So it's good to have others know they can ask questions about that as well. And Abdulaziz, you talked a little bit about with us before when we initially spoke with you about the ambassador program that you were a part of. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You know, I think Syracuse University, as well as a lot of different universities and colleges in the US, have rich student activities and student organizations on campus. You know, I can speak only about my experiences with SU, that we've had nearly more than 300 student organizations, student-run organizations. And if you were interested in even starting and creating your own organization or club, the university would support you with funding, with advising, and with mentoring. And so I was one of the students that was part of what we call the University 100, and that's our student ambassador program. Typically, we do a lot of activities such as tour guides on campus. We welcome any visitors, any family members, prospective students, as well as new incoming students to campus, and help them really understand the traditions at Syracuse, or the different the different colleges, and the different activities they can be part of. And beyond the University 100, which I did as an undergrad, I'm currently also involved on our Young Alumni Leadership Council. We call the Generation Orange Leadership Council. And that Young Alumni Council is really mandated with helping others, younger alumni, stay in touch with the university, find local alumni in their city that they're moving into, or the region they're going to, get connected with prospective employers and different opportunities. Specifically, what I do on the council, I'm a co-lead of the philanthropy committee. So my committee is the committee that's tasked with fundraising and really finding these younger donors and supporters of the university and the different programs. We help connect them with the university, as well as helping them make their marks on campus, whether that is through donating to a specific scholarship that they've benefited from, or even starting a new program on campus. And Syracuse does that from my experience very well. They tend to have a really close knit alumni community. Wherever I go and wherever I travel. For example, a few years ago, I actually went to Paris with my family, and I actually ended up meeting with some of my Syracuse as well as fraternity friends there. And he helped me, find the different cool spots that I wouldn't find on Google from a local perspective, and just showed me around the city. And same thing when I went to Hong Kong 2 years ago. I also met with one of my friends from the Maxwell School, who's a Hong Kong national. And so, he helped show me around the city and recommend to me. So it's really an amazing experience, because I know for a fact, no matter where I go, I can always tap into that alumni network and find someone in that city. I know that, for Michael and some of my other friends, now I tell them that, we have the FIFA World Cup coming up in Qatar in 2 years. And so a lot of my friends are actually planning to make their way here to Qatar and really get exposed to the culture here and the different things that we do here in Qatar. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's always the benefit of the diversity within a campus, is that you do get to meet people from everywhere, and then you always have that network to tap into. Michael, which part of the US did you move to Syracuse from, or where you from?
I'm originally from New Jersey, but I now live in Southern Delaware. So I didn't move too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, still East Coast. So it wasn't too far. And actually my dad went to Syracuse, and so did my sister and my aunt. So it wasn't anything that was too new for me. And definitely was another factor for why I chose Syracuse. But yeah, huge alumni network.
That's great.
I'm curious, did you start with a clear idea of what your major was going to be, Michael? Did you?
Yeah, so in high school, I took this class called Global Perspectives, which got me introduced to international relations. And I knew that was what I wanted to study going into undergrad. And so that's why I was really looking at a lot of schools in DC and other places. But I realized I really wanted to be at the Maxwell School, because I really loved the class sizes and the faculty there, and the experience of not only just the students, because there's amazing graduate students doing incredible research, but also the faculty that you work with directly.
And Abdul Aziz, from our conversation earlier, I think you had a little bit of a different start. Would you like to share kind of your how you ended up in the major that you ended up in?
Yeah, I definitely had a different start in SU. I graduated in Qatar from the technical high school, the Qatar Technical High School. So I had a STEM background and engineering background. And so naturally I was more into the STEM side. And I started Syracuse, and I got my admission letter actually into biology. And so my first semester, I was a biology major, and I started taking all these different STEM classes. And while I really enjoyed my classes and I enjoyed the instruction, I enjoyed the material, I knew for a fact that it just wasn't for me. And I didn't feel that this was where I saw myself, 10 years down the road. So I had to make a decision there, and whether to really continue in this major, knowing very well that it's a good field and it's a good track, but it's just not something that I know I'm passionate about. So my advisors in Syracuse and my family also were supportive of me deciding to change my major into policy studies and economics. And so that was really easy transition, so to speak, in Syracuse. It literally was as much as filling out a form, and then sitting down with a couple of advisors, and the whole process went very smoothly. And the good thing that it really didn't affect how long it took me to graduate. I graduated in 4.5 years with 3 different majors. So in the scheme of all things, 4.5 years was just about the right time for me. So it didn't really push me back. I think that Michael can also attest to that we all have to take this STEM classes. We all have to take some chemistry or biology or some math classes or classes that are outside of our direct area of study. And so typically that I think my advice to a lot of younger students in all the organizations that I've been involved to is that if you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore, you still have that window to make a choice and to change your major if you're really not happy with it, if you're really not passionate about it. Because the truth is, when I graduated and some of my friends graduated this past May and some will graduate next May, I know that some of them at this very late, at the kind of end game of their undergrad are really voicing and saying that, well, I don't really think that I want to be in this engineering track or this science track. I just don't think that it's for me. I wish I change my major to business management or to something else. And so you don't want to be that person. You don't want to really regret it, because then it's really going to be difficult for you to find a career track that aligns with your interests. So the truth is, most college advisors and professors, they want to be able to support you, and they want you to choose a track that works for you. No professor in the Maxwell School that I've come across told me to keep my biology major or choose a different major. All of them were like, well, take this class and try it out. If you don't like it, you don't like it. And if you like it, awesome, good for you. And so that's exactly what I tell everyone else, is that try the different courses that you have on campus, and especially the first year. Obviously make sure that it counts towards your degree requirements, but also try to really explore the different courses that are on campus. And you have advising, you have career advising, and you have all these different resources on campus. And even if you participate and engage in organizations like Michael and I did, then you have other senior students or students that are more experienced, that have probably juniors or seniors, and they can also be your peer mentors. Whether officially or unofficially, you can obviously grab coffee with them, have lunch with them, and just hang out and talk about your goals. And oftentimes everyone is more than happy to really sit down and tell you, and point you in the right direction, and tell you this is what you could do if you want to follow a DC track, or if you want to follow a foreign service track, and so on and so on. And so it's really the community matters. And I think that on campus as big as Syracuse, obviously not as big as other universities, but not really as small as some universities here in Qatar, is that you have that diversity, and you have these different groups, the special interest groups, clubs and organizations that you could realistically find at least 10 to 20, 30 people that have the same interests as you, if not more. And so all you have to do is just look for that, and you're going to find them.
And Michael, I was going to ask in terms of how you approach, well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. You're still in Syracuse now. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about what the experience has been like given COVID?
Yes.
What does the campus feel like? What are your classes looking like? Can you share a little bit about that?
So at Syracuse University, they took a very interesting approach that I think other universities also modeled off of, which is half in person, half online during classes. Although majority of my classes, because they are upper division IR French classes, they tend to be more online. But I don't really miss out on too much of the experience as I did before versus being in a classroom, because I can still access office hours whenever I want through Orange Success, or I could just email my professor directly, and 9 out of 10 times they'll respond to me within like 20 minutes. So I haven't had too much of a struggle transitioning with the COVID. situation. But it's definitely been nice though to be on campus and to have a university to go to. It's certainly much better than having to just be at home, but I'm still feeling safe here. And I feel like the university is being extremely proactive, especially with the testing. And that has made it feel much better and safer to be here on campus and still enjoy my time as a senior as I graduate.
Great. And with the testing, do all students have to get tested? Is it multiple times?
Yeah, so we have mandatory testing rounds through our swab testing system. I'm not exactly sure like what the dates are for that because the semester has ended prematurely a week early. And they changed the semester schedule. So we go home after Thanksgiving or before Thanksgiving. And that's the point of that is so we don't go home and then come back and then bring the virus to the local Syracuse community.
Great. And do you live on campus or in university residence?
I live off campus. So most people in Syracuse, they will live on campus for the first 2 years. And then I went abroad junior year and then I came back, I lived off campus, and now I'm living off campus again. And that makes it much easier for me, especially with COVID. So I don't have to worry about like university housing policies or anything like that.
Yes. And Abdelaziz, did you live on campus your first 2 years and then move off campus? What was your living situation like?
Yeah, same as Michael. You know, everyone, if you're a freshman or incoming student to Syracuse, we actually have a housing requirement for the first 2 years. You're required to be on campus housing. So the dorms basically. Well, sophomore year, you could go to, we have a South Campus, and that's usually the apartment buildings. And so you could have your own apartment with one roommate or two roommates. Some sophomores also, if they're involved in Greek organizations, for example, they can get Greek exemption and live in the Greek chapter house. And so, yes, but the first 2 years on campus, last 2 years off campus as well.
What was that like for you transition-wise? How many people did you share a room with? Did you have communal bathroom, ensuite?
Right.
That tends to be one of the worries we hear about, especially during our pre-departure orientation sessions here.
Right.
Yeah. I have to share with a stranger. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it definitely was a transition and a challenge a little bit at first to really be sharing a place with others. Luckily, I ended up having a single my freshman year, and same thing, single sophomore year. So we do have a lottery system, and sometimes you get a single, sometimes you get a double, and you get an ensuite. And so it really depends. So luckily, the first 2 years living on campus, I did have a single, but I did have Syracuse actually changed the way how the bathroom system works. It used to be communal, but the year that I started, all the communal bathrooms were changed into single-use private bathrooms. So you just use them. You know, they have the shower, you have everything, and that's single bathroom. And so that became a thing across campus pretty much. With the transition, also planned to almost switch out all the bathrooms, not only just in the housing facilities, but also on campus to be a single use. And then that's just a transition on campus to ensure that campus is being more inclusive of everyone and more welcoming. So I think that was really a great thing that we had a private use bathrooms.
And now this will have to jog your memory a little bit, way back for both of you to your freshman year. Can you think of something that was really shocking for you or really difficult for you to kind of work through in that first year, and how did you kind of cope with that?
Right.
I would say, oh no, you can go.
No, you go first.
Okay. I would say definitely time management is huge. That is something that we don't really develop as skills when we're teenagers as much until we become young adults. And freshman year, when you're thrown into such a new environment, you definitely are distracted much more easily. There's a lot of social distractions, there's a lot of other academic distractions. And so learning how to prioritize your tasks is definitely the biggest lesson I learned freshman year. But as you get more assignments and as the semester progresses, you learn more and you really do get the hang of it pretty quickly. And fortunately for me, I lived in the international relations learning community. So I constantly had like a TA like on my floor that would come for study hours, who would help me manage like my workload or anything like that. And my professor was always available. So time management was definitely my biggest obstacle freshman year, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think time management was definitely a big challenge, and not only just freshman year. I'd say really throughout all college. You know, as definitely you get older in college and you get more involved on campus, you start taking the upper level courses and get involved in different organizations. Different responsibilities come at you, and sometimes the deadlines really. You don't know how to manage that, and so it's really good as is an early skill to learn and to pick up is knowing how to manage your time effectively and more efficiently. But another thing that also was shocking, or let's say challenging, was definitely getting to meet other Syracuse students and making friends freshman year. I think that in my dorm where I lived, my floor was what we call the STEM learning community. So all the science, technology, engineering, and math majors were in that floor. And so since I was a biology major freshman year, it made it easier for me to really meet other people because whenever I had a biology class at 5 p.m., I know that there are at least 5 other friends that are going to that class, and so we just walk together and we help each other with homeworks and study together for exams and quizzes and so on. And so that was really the learning community and just the environment of the dorms really made it easier for us to meet other people that otherwise we wouldn't have met. And actually two or three of my I say my friends that I met them since freshman year, we actually still stay in touch and we text almost on a daily basis. We're still plan to travel together and meet each other in New York, or if you go to Florida during our vacations. And so sometimes the challenge is really getting to know those people and finding them, because freshman year, the truth is everyone is going to be friendly because this is their first time being in college and they just want to make friends. And but finding your friends that are going to stick around and be there for you and with you for the next 4 or 5 years is definitely a challenge, and especially if you come from a very much different background, from a different language barrier that you may have with them. And so that challenge sometimes can really be difficult for a lot of students. I know for a fact that there have been international students that tend to isolate themselves from the rest of the community because they don't know necessarily how to reach out. They don't know necessarily how to communicate, and maybe they're anxious that or afraid that their language barrier is going to be not going to be enough for them. And so what my suggestion and always recommendation is to try and to really put yourself out there, because sooner or later you're going to find those friends and you're going to know that those friends are going to be there with you for the rest of your Syracuse career, and hopefully for the rest of your life after you graduate as well.
Great. And were there other Khaliji students at Syracuse while you were there? Did you connect with them? And at least I'm thinking more so around the holiday time. So Ramadan is usually what was that community like, or sub-community like?
Right. Yes, there was a small Khaliji population in Syracuse. I did come across a few students that were from the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Oman as well. And so Syracuse has the Muslim Student Association, as well as in Hendricks Chapel, which is our multi-faith chapel on campus. Basically, they have different representatives of different religions. So if you were Christian and you wanted to speak with a priest, there is a priest there. And if you are a Muslim, there is also an imam in the building itself. And so you could use these resources. And if you wanted a prayer room on campus, there was a prayer room within Hendricks Chapel as well. Just very close to campus, about 5 minutes walk, there was also a masjid. And so there was a sense of community, especially around the holidays. We'd interact more together and sometimes would host meals together. But beyond that, there's also different organizations that tend to be more inclusive and more welcoming of these differences. I know that the European Student Association, for example, always hosted some events with the Muslim Student Association, and they tended to have dinners every now and then, as well as some indigenous groups on campus would also collaborate with these different organizations and tend to have a smaller sense of community there with students from different backgrounds and primarily from underrepresented groups.
And Michael, with you studying French, do you engage with other international student groups to practice? Is that something you see happening throughout Syracuse's community?
Well, yeah, in the French department at Syracuse, we have a French society, which is where you can go watch a movie, discuss in French. And it's like once you enter the room, you have to speak French and there's no English. So that's also an option for a lot of people to just like practice their French and comprehension skills in a very social, non-academic setting. But where I really was able to like learn most of my French was definitely when I went abroad to through the Strasbourg program, because they offer summer and fall programs, and that's where I practice the most. But yeah.
I was curious, Abdulaziz, if you had an opportunity to travel off campus during your time there, if you had any adventures you'd like to share.
Right. Well, I think that every Thanksgiving, I do have a different adventure, so to speak, because Thanksgiving is usually around the time where people tend to go back home and connect with their families. And I have that about 10 days period where I really can't go back to Lebanon. It's just 10 days. I'd spent 2-3 days just traveling and it's not worth it. So I tend to stick around. I remember my freshman year, I went to Niagara Falls, which was really close from Syracuse, with some friends that also stayed home that are international students. And we just went sightseeing and just exploring Niagara Falls. But then as I, got more involved on campus and I actually met other friends and got closer to some friends on campus, I, had the opportunity to really spend some Thanksgivings with some of my friends and just go back home with them. And, sometimes I spent one of my Thanksgiving in Los Angeles with one of my friends from California, and the other would be in Connecticut. So I definitely had all these different, opportunities and experiences of just really getting immersed in a different culture and getting to meet other people and feeling a sense of home, so to speak. But beyond that, when I took summer courses, and summer courses tend to be really lonely on campus, you only have about other maybe 30-40 students. I'm sure there's more students on campus. I just don't really see the rest of them. And the people that I know are probably 5 or less. So we tend to do a lot of the different activities, go to different lakes and waterfalls around the city. And if we have the opportunity, one of the summers I did travel with some of my friends. We went on a road trip all the way to Alabama. We stopped by in Georgia to meet with one of our friends in Georgia as well. Going to Alabama, we tried all the different food and all the different seafood. It was amazing. And just seeing the beaches there, that was really awesome. So, there is a lot. And, I think in my 4.5 years, I might have visited some 10 to 15 different states in the US. And so my goal obviously was to visit all states. And then I soon realized that was almost impossible in the 4.5 years to do. And I know that a lot of my American friends also haven't really visited all 50, states. And so that for them was, it was just really cool to be able to travel and taking the different road trips and seeing the different scenery. It's definitely different, and then it's very rewarding to be able to do that.
Well, and pretty
you,
soon,
Michael, did you also take advantage of traveling beyond the East Coast?
Yes, I did. Well,
Absolutely.
Montreal counts, but yes, I traveled to I used to, when borders were open, obviously. I would drive to Montreal with my friends and stay a weekend in the fall semester because Canada is just gorgeous in the fall with the foliage and the trees. I would also just travel really in the local, like upstate New York area. I didn't have too much time to travel too far because I am a full-time student. But yeah, upstate New York is just gorgeous to like just to visit. There's so many lakes, so much nature, so much hiking, and there's skiing in the winter. You can go to the Adirondacks. There's a lot to do that a lot of people actually don't even realize.
so I'm curious, when you first came, Abdulaziz, to campus, how confident were you with your English language? I'm kind of circling back to what you had mentioned earlier, and it sounds
Right.
like, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was confident to an extent, but you know, also that there were some challenges when I was on campus. You know, different pronunciations of different words, or the way that I structured my conversations with others, and so that was you know, challenging at first. But being immersed in that environment, just like Michael mentioned, when he went to Strasbourg, and or when he's in the French Society and they speak all just French language, you're gonna make mistakes, and you're also gonna learn from those mistakes, and you're gonna improve your language. And I think that was also similar situation to me when I was on campus. I soon learned how to maybe new words and new ways of saying different things, and slangs also on campus, and just really understanding the different languages and different accents on campus. So it definitely was challenging, but I think everyone at the end of the day wants, you know, maybe somebody's going to correct you. And it may, in the moment, come off as being rude to some people, but in reality, what, you know, I think people just want the best for everyone, and they just want to make sure that, you know, you're saying the right things, and that you're actually improving your language, you're improving your skills overall. And so just being involved, I think what a lot of international students, from my experience, having worked with some of these different organizations and clubs on campus, really tend to isolate themselves and tend to do their own activities, which, you know, that they're more, that is something that they should be able to do, and should be able to have their own clubs and organizations. But at the same time, if your goal was to just get an education, then you can do just that. But if your goal was to also improve your language and learn from the culture and really immerse yourself to get something beyond the classroom, then putting yourself in these situations and exposing yourself to different scenarios is the way to go about this.
Putting yourself out there is so important. Michael, I'm curious, what are your plans upon graduation?
Well, that's a great question. Well, I plan on coming home just for a bit, and then hopefully I would like to apply to some jobs in DC, see where things go. But obviously with the COVID situation, it totally depends. But I totally see myself moving down to Washington, DC, to the capital. I could also see myself going abroad again. But again, totally depends on the pandemic. But I have options that I'm definitely exploring. But Washington, DC tends to be my number one pick for after I graduate, for sure.
Any internship opportunities that you're exploring?
Yeah, so I'm looking at internships like on the Hill, or anywhere really in DC to get some like exposure. I did nonprofit management work in DC last summer, remotely, obviously. But I would like to be able to experience working and living in DC. So I'm definitely going to look at all options. And yeah.
And Abdulaziz, can you, so upon graduation, what happened? You went back to Qatar, or did you extend your stay after you graduated in the States?
I went back home, you know, right away in December, as soon as I finished the semester. I spent the first few months being back in Qatar, just readjusting and trying to figure out what's my next step and what I'm going to do next. And then come March, I think then we had the pandemic, and a lot of our plans and a lot of the things that we had planned got derailed. But being back in Qatar definitely allowed me to really explore my passion for starting up some consultancy firm with one of my Syracuse University colleague, and just working on some of the projects that we have and learning about the business culture here in Qatar and learning about how we can actually develop these different partnerships definitely was something rewarding. But also at the same time, I was working on my research skills and working on my research focus, and so that looked like that was part of the Brookings Doha Institution, part of the Brookings Institution in DC, and so I've been working with them in research and helping them develop some research projects, and also looking ahead into the future as to how I'm going to be involved in graduate school, perhaps at one point. And so just looking ahead and also making sure that I'm setting myself up the right way. And I think that really in a lot of the times, even if we plan ahead and some things like the pandemic or different opportunities may present themselves. And so it's really good to have an open mind about what could present itself as an opportunity, and just look for those different opportunities.
So Michael, graduate school in your future?
Yes, actually, it's ironic you bring that up, because I was studying for my LSATs last summer when the pandemic first started. I was like, you know what? Let's consider law school. And then as the LSAT date approached, I was like, maybe we should wait a bit. And so now I am looking at grad school options for sure. I just think I want to get a little bit of working experience before I make that really big decision. But I definitely see myself pursuing graduate school within like the international relations realm.
That's exciting. Oh, you're on mute.
It was going to happen once at least. You haven't talked much about Abdulaziz, your family, and kind of what their thoughts were when you said you wanted to go study in the US, or with the time away, you weren't coming on those short breaks. How often would you get home? Did they come visit you? What was the family relationship like?
Right. It definitely was challenging. I'll say that. My family wasn't all, at the very beginning, they wanted me to stay here. We have the Hamad bin Khalifa University, we have Qatar University, and they have the similar programs to what I studied. And so there was a little bit of a pushback, but also at the end of the day, that was something that I had planned for years. And so they were supportive of my decision to go study abroad. But I only had 2 times, that would be the winter break in December, middle of December to middle of January, where I would come back home for that whole month, as well as a couple months over the summer if I'm not taking summer classes. And I typically was taking some summer classes. So I had that summer break shortened a little bit. And I had my family members visit me a couple times on campus. Towards my sophomore year, my brother actually started his master's in University of Minnesota. And so he wasn't too far. And I visited his campus a couple times, and he came to Syracuse also a couple times. So also had some sort of proximity with one of my siblings here, and the rest of my family was back in Qatar.
Leffin, you must have had matching winter jackets. You both picked such cold places.
Yes, we did. Minnesota even got a colder weather than us, and so he definitely wasn't too happy with the weather.
But you survived, so that's the key. I know the weather can be one of the big factors for some people as they're making a decision on what's completely out of the question for being an option. So yeah, that's great.
What I'm curious, like for your mother, what was her biggest worry about you coming to the United States? Her fear, what did she worry about?
Well, I mean, I'm the youngest in my family, so that naturally was, you know, she didn't want me to move away for a prolonged period of time. But I think just, you know, as mothers worry that perhaps I wouldn't be safe on campus, and that you know, I would be in danger because I'm living on off campus or living independently for the first time. But soon after, you know, my father and my sister also visited me my freshman year, actually, as I just moved in. And so they were able to see the dorms. They were able to meet with some of the resident advisors, with some of the university staff, and they got a better sense of where I was at, and seeing that it was actually safe and that I was living on an on-campus environment with some supervisors and some resident advisors that that were there for us in the case that anything had happened. And so I guess just the biggest worry is always if I'm safe, and that's something, especially, you know, we talk a little bit about early this year, with my brother specifically being in Minnesota, and Minnesota had a lot of protests, and there were a lot of you know, these different issues, and so that also was as a challenge for all of us. But I think just knowing that when you're on campus and you know where you're at, and you know your surroundings, and you know your environment, your neighborhood, things tend to really be pretty safe. I can't really encounter a specific moment on Syracuse campus where I really felt in danger. You know, typically would be in the library, sometimes really late in the night, 3 in the morning, sometimes even later than that, when we have our finals and we're in group studying, and we'd walk back home, sometimes alone. And I really can't think of a specific time where I felt that I was in danger. We actually had public safety cars all over campus. We had all these different cameras on campus. And so even if you were walking 5 minutes away from campus and you live off campus, as I did for the last 2 years, these neighborhoods and these communities are just college students. And more than likely, you know, who live in these different houses, and they may even be up, and you can, you know, they're your friends. And so relatively, it's very safe. And I think with that, she felt way more comfortable and more supportive.
You know, because that's a question that we get quite often from other international students, that, you know, I think it's true as a parent, we all want our children to be safe and secure, no matter where they are, no matter how old they are. You know, you're still our babies. And so I think that, you know, that's important. It was important for your mother to become aware of the protections that are on campus for students. And Michael, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was
worried about you too.
Yeah, I was gonna add to the safety thing about Syracuse, is that it's a very centralized campus, which I feel a lot of American universities are like. I know some aren't, like Penn State could be a little spread out, but I know Syracuse, although it's a pretty big school, it actually feels like relatively small when you're on campus because everything is right there. All the academic buildings, so you don't have to walk too far. Everything is within a 15-minute walking distance, I would like to say. So you're never going off into some neighborhood that like you're not aware of or that you don't know of. Everything is relatively very safe, I find it. And there's DPS, which is like our campus police, and they monitor, and there's they have a good system down, and I feel safe when I'm around campus. And I definitely think it has to do with the layout too.
And if I may add just one more thing, I think that's also something that you're going to see on all American campuses. I don't think it's unique to Syracuse. I may be wrong, but there is the blue light system And that blue light system is basically the emergency system. So you're going to see different blue light poles spread across campus. And there is always a good rule about it, is that if you see one blue light system, you typically see another one within range. So that, if in the case you feel in danger, you press the blue light system and the Department of Public Safety is notified. You keep walking to the other one, you press that, and so on and so on. And Syracuse also had a very cool app that we called the LifeSafe. So my mom in Qatar could actually do that. She can download it. I can, connect her to my account. And if I'm walking back from the library late at night, she could actually monitor me walking back to my dorm. And, in the case something happens, she can notify from her end. And I know that some parents actually find this to be way more reassuring. And, the fact that they can actually see where their kids are and, if they're safe, and if they're not responding, then they could just automatically notify Department of Public Safety, no matter where they are. And so that's something that, typically we, when we give tours to parents, we bring this up, and parents find this to be reassuring.
Yeah, that's a great app. They didn't have that when I was in school, but I know that when my kids go, I'm going to definitely ask about that.
Definitely.
So I know we did have a question from the Facebook Live about requirements for postgraduate study, but so Sally, both Michael and Abdelaziz were pursuing, well, Michael's still there finishing up his undergraduate studies. So the requirements for those would generally be similar in terms of English language proficiency, transcripts for, if you're looking for post-grad, then you're looking for your bachelor's level transcripts, recommendation letters. But you can reach out to Education USA so we can talk you through some of those steps more specifically. But if you want to hear something about Michael or Abdelaziz's experiences, definitely add that as well. We can let them know what you want to know. But I do want to ask, I know we're going to be wrapping up soon. We'll see if any other questions pop up. For Michael, there are international students who feel that campuses aren't as welcoming, perhaps, or that Americans, I mean, there could be this generalization, are not welcoming to international students, in particular from the Middle East region. What can you say, or what message would you give to them about, Americans welcoming international students on campuses?
I would say, well, for Syracuse University, I could speak on behalf of my school, is that I find this university campus to be extremely welcoming for diversity. I think even just looking at Greek life, I know there's people from all different backgrounds that I have met and spoken to. And a lot of people here are really willing to share their stories and their background and their experiences. And we have a very open dialogue and rhetoric here, which I think really adds to that environment. So I would really encourage international students who do come here on campus is to get involved and to join organizations like Aziz was bringing up, because that is a great opportunity for you to culturally connect with someone of a different background and be in a social situation where you can let that guard down and you can speak to them and you can gain more connections.
And then from the flip side, Abdelaziz, for Qatari students specifically, who may think the US is too far or not safe enough or unwelcoming, what would you say to those students? And then separately, what can they say to their parents, or you to their parents, to talk about what the benefits might be to that?
Right. I think in terms of the US being too far, yes, I get it. I know that my parents sometimes, they've only visited once because the flight itself is very long, and, having to have a layover in JFK and then go to Syracuse, or if you stop in Boston, go to Syracuse, it's a little bit difficult for a lot of people. But for us, if you're a young college or, high school senior about to go to college, this shouldn't be really a problem for all of us to just travel. I think what we can say, and what we can tell our parents, and this is what I told my parents and my family in convincing them that I want to study in the US, is the different educational opportunities that I had or that I will have in the US. And just even just going maybe to YouTube and just showing them a video of the campus itself, the campus life itself, and finding these different activities on campus that may be of interest to them. I know that, for example, that in Syracuse, we had the learning communities, which every different dorm and different floors have different learning communities. And I think that also was something that reassured my parents that, okay, well, I'm going to be in a learning community with all the different STEM majors. And that's not going to, I'm not going to slack off my work or going to be lazy or not manage my time efficiently because everyone will be taking the same classes as me. And I think that was a big challenge for my parents, is that knowing someone from our family that did study abroad, not in the United States, and they had a difficult experience with how campus was welcoming, or how some of the professors or instructors perceived them. And so it's just about discussing and sharing and communicating why you want to do it and what are the benefits of that. And I think every campus brings something different. Sure, you can get the degree at any other campus, but the experience itself is going to be different at every different campus. And I think that if your parents were to see it themselves, even if you had the opportunity, I know it's difficult for a lot of us Qataris to actually tour campuses because we'd be flying and spending a lot of money just to stay at a hotel and visit campus for a couple of days. So a lot of us don't do it, but just being able to see campus, perhaps in this virtual period right now, you can easily set up these or attend some university webinars and welcome sessions that show you around campus, that you can connect with these different university staff and advisors. I know what really sealed the deal, so to speak, was to really meet our regional admissions officer when she was able to come to Qatar and meet with me in person. And that for me was the deciding factor, is that I was able to connect with someone. And just like Michael had mentioned earlier, we didn't feel like a number, but we felt like an actual student that was given the full attention of the university. And so I think that people and students, prospective students and families should really look for those universities that really show you that they care and they will go well above and beyond the traditional admissions process. That will make sure that you're feeling comfortable and safe on campus. And looking at something that we didn't actually touch upon and talk about is actually also the food option for a lot of the students. So exactly. So that's a very good question. I know my parents wanted to know about it. And so having an imam on campus and having my dorm specifically was a kosher dorm as well as halal dorm. So when I wanted, anything, basically, I could reach out to the food staff ahead of time and just email them or just show up at the dining hall and just ask for a specific option and they would make it for me. So just asking about this little tiny details across, about resources on campus, about the pre-existing community on campus, about the food option, about all these different interests for the student is something that it will inform your decision as you go to as how you select the university that would be your home for the next 4 or 5 years.
Paula, you have any other questions?
No, I mean, it was just a wonderful session. I enjoyed learning about both your experiences, and I'm so happy that you were willing to share that with the community at large. Lots of good guidance and advice for prospective students and parents, and also for school counselors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So
Absolutely.
Thank you to both of you. As you know, we've streamed this live on Facebook, and generally I expect we'll get a lot more viewers as well after, as we do typically see those numbers rise. But we appreciate your sharing today, your experiences. This was a great chat, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, and I'm happy to share our experiences with you. Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Thank you so
very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hey.